The Orpheus syndrome just sounds painful. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. A little behind this week. One, so many things came out on between that Wednesday and Thursday mark, and two, work won't let me be great. Between work and watching them and having to do real life things, I haven't been able to talk about stuff that I've watched a couple of days ago. One of them being Poker Face, the other being Bel Air. So here we are, finally getting to talk about this. I wish things were not all dropped on Thursday, kind of even things out. Monday, you know what I was doing? Nothing, because nothing came out for me to talk about. We're on the 8th episode of Poker Face, called the Orpheus Syndrome. This one's a cool episode in that Natasha Lyonne actually directs this episode, which is fun. She has some pretty cool, macabre ways of directing that I'll get on to a little bit later as we go along. In this episode, Laura, played by Cherry Jones, is this big, well-to-do, multi-millionaire Hollywood producer. And we come upon the scene with her screaming and talking to her husband, Max, who is appearing to commit suicide after something has been revealed between the two of them. And she races to her old friend, played by Nick Nolte, called Arthur, who is a crazy in-house real creature feature design SFX man, special effects man, who can make her a real life model of her dead deceased husband's face. And she says she wants it to remember him, and so she can make amends in peace and apologize to him. That's some weird stuff. And some stuff that, really think about it, that math ain't mathing. We get to why it's not soon enough. As we see as it goes along, we see that Laura and Max had a conversation before that fated moment when he falls over the balcony. And in that, Max tells Laura that, hey, I'm aware of what you did back in the day. I'm aware that you were responsible for Lily's death. Lily was someone who they were three producers, them, Laura, Max, and Arthur were producers together that tried to make a film, Arthur being the director of it. We come to find out they were a group who were doing this low budget creature feature type movie, and Lily is a person who died on the set. Coming upon the anniversary of that, but Max was looking at some old footage of it and found that Laura was the one who was responsible for her death. And she didn't do it on purpose, but she did it to sort of put a warning to Lily, who was at the time being a bit of a difficult actress on set. Laura has zero remorse for it. She's like, yeah, I did it, but we had to be doing it, and I'm just pretty much going to bury it and not worry about it. Not that big of a deal. Max trusts Laura. One, I mean, they've been together for quite some time, and so he doesn't think anything of it. But so they're drinking tea, and Laura goes ahead and poisons him, and poisons him in a way that he's like, I don't want to die by these hands. Because he's saying, I've digitally encoded all of that footage so that we have it, so that you can't just get rid of it. If I get rid of the film, I've got the digital print of it, so it's always here, and I've saved it on the drive. She gets wind of that, poisons him, and then that is when we see the scene that he has basically killed himself so that he doesn't feel the pain anymore, and actually brings a little bit more attention to this as opposed to it just being a regular death by poison or death by like heart attack. Max sort of does put a hex on her as he's falling over the balcony, saying, hey, remember, look at my eyes and remember this. It's kind of his way of saying, hey, this is going to always be with you. Max, however, is no dummy. He had two-factor authentication on his computer. So in addition to the password, which she was able to easily crack, could be whatever, something simple to remember, it also needs facial recognition. Thus, that explains the recreation of the bust that she wanted of her husband, Max. And so she uses that face, looks dead, just like him, unlocks, and she deletes that file. We then enter Charlie. We pick up with Charlie, and Charlie is working at a barbershop. This is fun in that Charlie is at a beauty salon that everybody's lying to everybody. It's just one big lie fest. And they also got Maury Povich not your father stuff on the test up there, which she can easily decipher, which is a cute little wink at what her ability can do. But it's to the point where so much lying happening that she's just twitching. She's like, I need to not be here. There's just a lot of lying. But at this beauty salon, she is asked to take a bag of hair to Arthur's place, which for us as an audience makes a lot of sense because we know that he's a creature creator and he's making all of the stuff. But for somebody out of the blue saying, I'm just taking human hair to this random man's place seems a bit odd. She does so. She gets there and she meets him. She sees the monster in the window, and then we see this disheveled looking Nick Nolte drinking on the patio, and he's a old man who has never once again made a film again, but continues to make creatures. And in this, we want to see that he's depressed about the loss of someone. There's somebody that he's always been grieving. This is his sort of way to do it. He doesn't really want Charlie around, but they end up sort of having a bond because Charlie sort of sticks around and feels at one with his grief. This is the first time that we sort of get a call back to the first episode of her losing her friend, where she sort of feels like, hey, I can talk to this person about grief. But two, it's the first person she's had in a while since her job here at the beauty salon where she doesn't feel like constant lies have been told to her. Everything that Arthur was saying was truthful. Even the fact that he's like, I don't really want you around, that was truthful. So she felt, hey, this feels better. I don't have an eye twitch starting when I'm around you. I feel at home with you. After a few drinks, Charlie and Arthur go in to look at some of the creatures and creature work that he has done. And Charlie's like, I got to get back home. And Arthur's like, well, I can't let you go back in this type of condition. One, in his brain, he's probably thinking, grieving. He's like, I can't put you in a situation that I might lose you. He's like, so there's a cot up there. So all in all, they talk about some other things, and she ends up with a job as being like his assistant or kind of helper around the House of Horror. He just got a new business proposition that he's going to need her around for a little bit. She is there for a week, and then she sees Laura come in and give the proposition about the head. So she is around when the headpiece comes in. She at that point immediately says there's something off about Laura. She says that she's lying about something, and she immediately tells Arthur about it, but Arthur just chalks it up as a grief. He's like, look, when you have somebody who's been grieving as long as she has, because he is grieving, they're grieving the same thing. So he thinks. So he feels like, yeah, I'm going to give her a pass. And Charlie just chalks that up. I'm like, okay, cool. You say that is, I believe you. Here we go. It is at that point that Arthur informs her of the incident that sort of occurred that has put him in this state and has subsequently had them all sort of separate and splinter off. He was the first-time director of his new film, this big film that he wanted to do, and it involved an underwater tank. And in this, the actress was giving some difficulties about getting the shot to work. She kept saying, hey, this isn't working. I can't breathe, or he wasn't getting what he wanted out of it. And he thought she was just being difficult. But they did have a mechanism that when she was underwater for a bit and she couldn't breathe, or she needed to pause or get out, she had a buzzer that she could hit, and the red light would chime off, and they would immediately bring her out of the tank. Laura, we've seen by some footage that we have already sort of seen, is that Laura unscrewed the light bulb just enough to so that when she triggered it, it didn't ring on. So clearly, this is on Laura. This is Laura's fault. She tried to kill that girl, but she did it just to kind of prove a point. Like, hey, she's just being a tough actress. And then when she died, she's like, oh well, she died. She did. So it wasn't immediately that she tried to kill Lily, but it also, when it happened, wasn't really trying to say, hey, it was me. I did that. But for Arthur, it just devastated his career. First time director, never recovered from it. And he feels that because he was too hard on Lily, Lily didn't feel like she had the voice to say that she wasn't comfortable or she wasn't good to do the shot. So he feels that he pushed her too hard, that she subsequently risked her life and her better health to get the shot. And so that's what's been eating at him all of this time. In that he has been making all of these creatures that are sort of a recreation of that time. You see a woman with these scales, which represents what Lily was, coming out of this big tank. You see this crying, godlike figure that's supposed to be sort of him. You see a creature with a film, like he's basically making artistic licensed versions of the situation that he was in, calling it the Orpheus syndrome. At that point, Charlie's like, you got to revisit the past to kind of get over it. Like some of this stuff, you gotta get through that muck to actually get on the other side of it. And she kind of reveals a little bit about her and her friend that she lost at the very beginning. In that sort of triggers Arthur to kind of look up the old footage because of the 40-year anniversary. Raul already sort of had it pulled, but Arthur calls Raul, who's played by Luis Guzman, and he asked him to deliver some archival footage of the dailies or the work that they had for that film, specifically the day that the accident happened. So he calls and he does, but what's crazy is that we then catch up to the scene that happened a little bit earlier when after Laura deleted the footage off of the computer, she then tried to make a call. And she winked at Max's head and was like, I got you. She was calling Raul to say, hey, now that she's gotten rid of the digital one, she needs to get rid of the hard copy, the actual footage, so then the circle is complete. So she calls Luis Guzman's character, Raul, to get the footage. And he's like, yeah, my bad. I've already given that to Arthur. So at that point, kind of the cat's out of the bag. And so we then at that point see Arthur knocking on her door. And she's like, well, crap. He knows. And he's in on this. So then Arthur and Laura have a talk in the back patio by the fire. And at that point, Laura tells Arthur that it was an accident. Like, I didn't mean for it to do. I wasn't trying to kill her. But she shows zero remorse. Like, she's fully in like, nope. Hey, it is what it is. That type of thing. And it's weird because she doesn't really show any remorse for her husband either. It feels like the idea of having guilt on her conscience doesn't exist. As long as it's all removed and nobody can put anything on her, she is okay. She feels fine. But once that wall starts closing in, that's when she starts feeling some type of guilt. Laura winds up another round of that tea and gives it to Arthur. So we know what's happening. But in that, Arthur lets her know, like, you know what? It's in the past. I'm not going to worry about it. Let bygones be bygones. He's already drinking the tea, but then he takes the footage that he brought with him there, and he throws it in the fire. He's like, ah, well, good seeing you again, old friend, but I'm not going to bring this up. And he takes off. She starts feeling kind of bad because she's like, oh, crap, he's going to die. Like, I just killed him, but he wasn't going to blackmail me or put anything out there. And I just did this to him. He does. Arthur hits the road, and he does pass out and die in front of his home. Same sort of way. Not as violent as Max. Max chose to end it worse and jump over, but his heart stops. He's dead in his front lawn. But in that, Laura looks in the fire and sees that that reel doesn't have the entire incident, an entire night. It's been spliced out. And she's like, well, shit. She's freaking out because now two of the producers that she was in this all with has died, and now the footage is somewhere out there, and who knows whose eyes are being put on it. Then Laura calls the sort of insurance company that is behind all of this, that is for the film company, and says, hey, under the guise of the film company, we need to collect all those assets and thus get that film back. We need to get that film and anything that's in that house in Arthur's home is part of our property. We want to have it all, and we want to have it all under the guise of this 40-year anniversary. We want to have it present so that we can display it and show it all off. Charlie is the one who found Arthur's body, and she sees the gravel that is under the tires just to see where he was last, and she remembers that that's where she's the one who dropped off Max's head to Laura. As she was working, she's the one who dropped that off. She remembers that gravel, so she goes back to Laura and kind of is like, hey, I know he was here. Did he find peace in whatever else he was looking for? Because after whatever happened, whatever he looked at, brought him to you, and I just kind of want to make sure that he was okay, because I cared about him a little bit in that moment. And they have a pretty cordial conversation. It seems like Charlie is going to walk out of there and not implicate or think anything of Laura, because everything that Laura is saying, there's truth to it. She is saying she did care about Max. She cared about Arthur. She wants this all to be about behind him. Everything she's saying is not leading to a way that would, she's not saying anything that's a lie. And then as she's about to leave, she invokes Max's name. It's just how much she cared about Max and that he didn't have anything to do with his death. It's a weird. This is the first time where it feels like that's really tacked on, because I feel like all in all she could have just closed that door. But it's a way that like she felt so brazen in what she was doing at that point that she started to believe what she was saying. Like, oh yeah, no, I love Max. I definitely didn't have anything to do with him. And then she starts twitching like she was in the beginning with the beauty shop. Charlie knows that that's BS and something's off. So it sets off her BS meter. She goes back to Arthur's workshop and tries to have Max like, hey, can we? Is there a way we can look at this footage, or can we find this footage? And they go, but it's not there. It's not in the can. It's empty. And then at that point, they have to hide because Laura's coming in with all the people that are confiscating all that material. But she smells something, and Raul gives himself up so that Charlie doesn't get in trouble. Raul gives himself up. And so all the files and everything are sort of taken in. We then kind of skip ahead to the 40-year anniversary, and Laura's getting all set. Now, Charlie is trying to get to this 40th anniversary because as things were leaving, she was trying to think of where would Arthur put the spliced material, because she realized that the spliced piece of what is implicating Laura has been taken out. She's trying to find out where that is. And she sees it then around the Orpheus syndrome, like the Medusa-esque part of it, tendrils up from the snake. She sees it's wrapped all around that. She's like, oh, crap, there's the film. So she has to try to get back into that 40th anniversary exhibit to confiscate it. She makes one pass at it in a horse head that was created, but is caught by Laura. At that point, Laura goes to Raul and fires him, saying like, hey, you are the one who let files leave here. You know the rules, they shouldn't leave here. She fires him as he's leaving with his sad "you just got fired" box. Charlie finds him outside, and so he still has his work pass, which hasn't been deactivated yet. He's able to get Charlie and himself back in, and they kind of work a plan to get the strip and play it live in front of everybody, which causes Laura to go into this crazy dream sequence state, which is some great macabre stuff. However, it was shot. Natasha did a great job of directing, because there's two things that I loved about this episode. One, they show a lot of old footage that they are able to apply that grainy stock, like that old school style to it. It works. And then in this, she's coming down this barrage, this manic state where she's seeing Max's head come alive and wink at her and give her that look. She's seeing a lot of the dead rise back up. Those animatronic things that, or those creatures that Arthur made, start coming to life a little bit, and just freaks her out. And the more she's in this wild haze, and it's pretty cool to watch. But then, like Max, she follows Max as Max is in her enlightened and under the influence state, her manic state. She sees Max fall over the railing there, and then she subsequently falls and jumps after him. But in present day, in real life, she does it and actually is splat on the ground. And so she wound up in the same fate that her husband did at the very beginning. And then all three of them, unfortunately, are gone, all because of this this lie that she was holding. And she was the one sort of responsible for all of it. A really solid episode. What's crazy is this isn't my favorite overall episode. I still like some of the ones that came before it more. But I will say this about episode 8, called The Orpheus Syndrome. It is shot in a way that is just really stylized. Like, I think these episodes have always felt like they were films, like miniature films, hour-long movies. This one is the first time that almost leans sometimes into horror a little bit. And it's a cool little wink, wink, nod to some of that old school creature feature era type of shooting. And I dug that. So again, while the story and the characters didn't hit me the way that some of the other ones did, specifically like that Judith Light episode, this is the one I was like, this is shot in a way that's just cool. So I do hope that Natasha enjoyed the directing chance and gets to do this again, because I think she had a really, really cool eye for this, and I would love to see what she does next. What did you guys think about this 8th episode of poker face called the Orpheus syndrome. We'll leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up an email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.